Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the BFA webinar. Today, I'm joined by Matt Walsh from Modular Commerce. Some of you might know Matt. He's a long-standing BFA partner and essentially helps small businesses with their Shopify websites and marketing. So Matt and I today are just going to go through the best practice for Shopify for BFA members. So thanks for joining us, Matt.
Thank you for inviting me. It's very exciting. It's our kind of first podcast for a couple of years, I think. I'm kind of thinking this should be like a paid service, really, but let's see how we get on first.
Well, yeah, we did come up with what did you say, Matt? Polly and Matt chat. So that's kind of quite a good exactly, quite a good topic. So today, a lot of our BFA members use Shopify. We have a lot of SMEs, as you know, Matt. So it would be fantastic if you could take us through best practice and any kind of pinch points or any issues that you think a lot of people cover. So just to give it a bit of context, Matt does work with a lot of SMEs in helping them with brand awareness and their websites, and of course through that Shopify. So Matt, I'm gonna lead into you.
So the big question really, I guess, is why Shopify? So as Modular Commerce, we actually started and built our own platform back in the day 3 years ago when we started. And we very quickly realized that it was really expensive to maintain. And there are still a number of even independent retailers running their own platforms. But 15, 20 years ago, that was the only way to go. I think probably the last 5 years, Shopify has really accelerated. Before Shopify, there was WooCommerce or WordPress, which is still also very popular. We evaluated at probably the end of 2022, was it, or 2021? We realized that our own platform was too expensive, and we started researching options. So we researched things like Magento, BigCommerce, WooCommerce, and I just felt for our customers in the footwear industry, because we're pretty like we're 90% footwear for our client base. I mean, we have bled into kind of clothing because it's an underwear, because it's kind of very similar from a SKU count point of view, but predominantly we're a footwear. We work
and
just
your
in footwear.
Background's footwear as well, isn't it, Matt? I mean, you're footwear through and through, which is why obviously that you're so knowledgeable on lots of different areas. So that's fantastic for members.
Yeah, and the team that we've got behind, my business development managers from Clark's. I've got 2 administrators from Clark's. I've got an administrator that's ex-Pentland. My co-founder, James Radford's worked for FitFlop, Adidas, Foot Locker. So
it's the who's who of footwear.
It's the who's who of footwear. And then we've brought in technical people that aren't from footwear, that are specific in that technical area, whether that's Google advertising, Shopify web development, project management. Those people tend to be out of footwear, but we're just kind of a nice blend of the tech and the footwear, really. But
that's brilliant.
We looked at various things when my kind of chief tech officer said to me, we need to move, and he said, I think he said, my gut feeling is we need to move to Shopify, but let's research it. And we spent 2 or 3 months researching it, talking to a lot of the companies, and Shopify is just the one everybody wants to use. It's 365 days a week, 24 hours. There's constant support. It's easy to use. There's a community behind it. So not only do you have Shopify, but there's thousands of experts that you can kind of ask or get to do a specific job. There's companies like myself who are Shopify partners that kind of work through everything with you and guide through everything. So Shopify really is the one at the moment, is the one-stop shop. I mean, there are pretenders, not pretenders coming through, but there are challengers coming through. And it would be interesting to see also how WooCommerce reacts, because WooCommerce is definitely getting a little bit left behind. Probably 5 years ago, marketing agencies liked WooCommerce because it's very heavy code. So basically, it was a very good way of tying you in. The other advantage with Shopify is you can move between agencies very easily, because the site is owned by you, and that's really what probably my biggest tip If you're working with a web developer or an agency, make sure that you're the owner of the store. Like anybody that works with us, they're the owner of the store and we're the collaborator, effectively.
Perfect.
And I would say that's the biggest thing.
Yeah. So that's something already just to highlight to members, because we do have, new businesses joining us, so we will hold their hand and help them. So I think that's, like you say, point one. Make sure you own it. That sounds fantastic. So then you've got the flexibility, haven't you? So you can move wherever you want. Yeah.
I mean, I'm actually we're in discussions with it's not a footwear company, so I could mention it, but we're in discussions with someone at the moment. And my first question was like, we need collaborator access to your site to analyze what's happening and whether we can do a better job than your current web provider.
Yes.
And they basically said to me, we're in dispute with them. We haven't paid them. And basically, we don't own the site. And I was like, well, I said, to be honest, I think that will prevent us from working with you unless you completely start again. So that'd be my one big tip: own the site.
Yeah, brilliant.
If you don't take anything else from this call, own your site.
Yeah, own the site. Okay, brilliant.
If you need to, and also if you need to know where to find that in Shopify, if you go into staff and permissions, at the top it very clearly says store owner. And also don't get confused between owning the store and owning your domain, because your domain and your store are two different things. That would be my other kind of wonderful piece of information.
Yes. Brilliant.
So we moved to the Shopify platform. We've probably got 32. I was just looking this morning. We've got 32 clients that we either built the site or collaborate with.
Brilliant.
There's definitely a number of best practice. So the first thing I would say is, if you're someone who's got a website or who wants a new website or hasn't got a website and wants to trade online, I think the biggest trap people fall into is, if they've got a website, is like, I need a whole new brand new website.
And they see it as this major job, and oh my goodness, lots of money, and
they'll go to an agency, and the agency will say you need to spend £30,000 or whatever it is. We're going to give you this shiny new website. Your traffic's going to go up exponentially. Your conversion's going up exponentially, so you'll make more money. Unfortunately, it isn't always the case. So what I always say to people is, if you've already got a Shopify site, analyze what's happening with that Shopify site. Because unless you know really what's happening, and Shopify is brilliant, it's got an amazing reporting dashboard. And we meet clients where they've never looked at their dashboard, and they might look at sales at the top, but they don't go below.
And you've probably got all that information. You're just not utilizing it. So
you can see what pages are most visited, where people drop off, how long people spend on a page. All those things are really valuable, and actually can help you optimize your site and make the most money out of it, because that's what it's really about. Sounds a bit crass, but it is.
It is. It's totally
about making profit from your site.
It is.
And I'd also say my other kind of big tip is, think about when you're using the Shopify infrastructure. The Shopify infrastructure is really good at connecting to other areas. That's really what it's very good at. So if you're a brand, for instance, and you want to work with John Lewis or whoever else on the marketplaces, there's very good, robust connectors that connect into their marketplace, and then you run all your stock from one place, which is Shopify. You've got one version of the truth, one place to maintain it. Where a lot of people, I think, go wrong, or basically they overcomplicate things by adding a complicated ERP, or they need very specific warehouse management, and often that's where it can go wrong.
So it's almost less is more. Simple.
The other thing with Shopify is you can run one store or you can run 1,000 stores, or you can run a warehouse, or you can run a B2B system from it. It's got everything now. Whereas like 5 years ago, it was just for a single person, selling.
Yes.
Whereas now it'll work all the way from someone on a market stall, not online, all the way to someone with 100 stores and a big online system, 3 warehouses, working in multiple international markets.
Amazing.
So my other kind of big tip is use the features of Shopify for your business. And actually, I always say, and I'm not saying this just because obviously we're a Shopify partner, there's thousands of Shopify partners.
Yeah.
But I would always say, where possible, use an expert. And the analogy I give is basically, for me, if I've got a problem with my plumbing at home, I hire a plumber. I don't do it myself.
Exactly.
Or even, I'm not great at DIY. I know some people are, but I'm not in particular. It'll take me 10 times longer than me hiring someone.
Naturally, probably will cost you more in the long run because you probably do more damage.
Yeah,
essentially, isn't it?
And I think I think even really big businesses at the time, and one of my previous employers used to kind of try and do everything themselves, and actually sometimes bringing in like a third party just to do it quickly, train your team how to do it is a good option.
So in terms of, say we had a member that's got Shopify, but they're not aware of, how to use the dashboard, would they contact you, Matt, or would they utilize what Shopify do?
So basically the good thing about Shopify is everything's there and online, and you can watch YouTube videos, and there's lots of resources there. There's also like a partner directory. So if you've got like something specific that you want to know, Shopify can basically give you like 10 people in your kind of in your location that could help you.
Fantastic.
Or you can come to us, and if it's something that we're experienced in doing, we're basically happy to advise or help, or however the client wants to work, really.
Perfect.
But I think that's the other thing with Shopify, where it has very strong advantages, is it can be self-learning. So you can kind of use someone like an organization like mine for a couple of years, and actually we'll train you to use it,
educate you. Yes. And then you've got it. Brilliant.
The caveat to that is some people, we've done that with a few people, and then they've actually said, this takes too much time up, so can you just do it? But I think the good
either
thing
way,
with it, got the flexibility. That's the point.
Brilliant.
So
to analyze the site, use your dashboard, use the data that you've got. You don't need to go spending a fancy website, because actually if you're using Shopify, a lot of that information will probably still be there. What else, Matt? What else in best practice?
So one of the things I always say is it's not just about how the site looks externally. So everybody gets very excited about, I'm going to put this video on, or I'm going to make this site and great on mobile, so people are entertained, so that when they're swiping from Instagram, they come to me and they buy things, and
I'm sure you're going to say it's the functionality that's
it is, unfortunately. The biggest thing that people need to work on is data. Data is king.
It is.
And it's the data flowing into Shopify. So it's things like your product naming convention. So if I'm going to sell online, I'm going to have to probably use Google search, or I'm going to need to use Instagram or Facebook shop, or whatever it is. The better your data is, the easier it is for the customer to find your product. So if it's like I'm going to use a shoe brand. There are other shoe brands available. I'm not like wedded to this particular brand.
No,
but
we're not the BBC, Matt. That's fine.
Yeah, that's okay. So, for instance, you could label a shoe, Gabor women's ankle boot, black, size 39. that's the type of information that you need in that product description. Because when that then, if that's not in Shopify, so to give you an example, we worked with a client who had Gab, Bluck, 39. That was it. So it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything to the go to Google, who's basically trawling that description to then say to a client,
this is where you can buy it.
Yeah. So getting that data correct in Shopify in the first place gives you a really big starting point, and then basically how you tag that data, and the meta fields you use for SEO. So those kind of keywords and in the description are really important.
It's really interesting because just to interrupt you, Matt, we have a lot of brands that, particularly the smaller brands that say, they struggle with brand awareness because they're like, there's so much out there and we almost are overloaded, aren't we, with information. So like you say, get your data correct, give yourselves the best possible opportunity with your description, that it would then feed back into you. So it's almost like the simplicity, isn't it? It's almost, and I do think a lot of people, particularly members that we speak to that are starting out, I think if you're from particularly a product creative background, all of this just feels like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm doing. Whereas actually speak to someone, get a specialist, look at your data, and just do things well rather than bogged down.
I would also say if you're a kind of startup and starting a website or starting a new brand, get it right at the start. Because if you get it right at the start, it's much easier to manage than actually if you've then got a ton of legacy data that you've then got to kind of correct. So if you can get it, spend time at the start. Don't think because what particularly creatives will do is spend a lot of time on what the website looks like
aesthetically. Exactly.
And actually that's the easiest bit to change. The hardest bit to change is the data that's running the
functionality. Perfect. So your data's king. Make sure that your descriptions, everything is super clear.
And then my other key point for Shopify is, and everybody falls into this trap, basically it's almost like I say, people addicted to the newest app, and we come across people that can be running 75, 80 apps on a shop, and it's not necessary. And they're all doing like different things, or some of them are switched off, some of them are switched on. The problem is every time you add an app, generally it slows your site speed down. So unless it's doing something really important that's going to help you sell,
that's incremental,
incremental, or basically give the customer a better experience so they convert faster, I wouldn't use it. But there are some that are really important. So if you're looking at your app stack now, make sure you've got Google and YouTube, because that's the one of Shopify's great advantages over all the other web builders. That piece of that link, that automatic link into Google Shopping is invaluable. It will basically save you lots of time, and it will give you a much better performance over platforms that are that are having to push through like a manual data feed, because it's automated. You change something in Shopify, 5 minutes later it's changed in Google, or less than 5 minutes actually. But
amazing.
So I'd say that's a really important app. And then the apps you should be using I think are connector apps. So like if you're trading on Amazon, use an Amazon app. There's several out there. I mean, like I don't want to kind of say this is the best one. There's 2 or 3 that we use, which connect into Amazon. You could use apps to connect to accounting programs like Sage or Xero. All those sorts of things are really useful functionality, and because they're not affecting the front end, they're not slowing the site speed down. I mean, I can give you an example, and we won't name them. Again, they're not a shoe company, so it's fine. But they're not a member either. But we did work with someone who basically didn't tell us, but added an app to their checkout, which was to do gifting, Christmas gift wrapping. And basically the person that installed the app basically changed some of the code in the checkout, which they shouldn't have done. And it basically, the app was switched off for a while. They switched the app on and basically took the checkout down. And all of a sudden I got a call on Friday night, Matt, we haven't had any conversions today. There's loads of lost baskets. And I kind of go in, check the checkout, and basically they've taken the checkout down because they've installed an app.
Right. So be really mindful of that then.
Yeah.
Really good advice.
Yeah.
And also I think in those tech spaces, there's a lot of people doing things that maybe don't really understand the functionality with other things and how they talk to each other. So because good advice.
The key thing with Shopify is basically Shopify runs from themes effectively. You can code your own website, but there's not really a great deal of point to that. So, I mean, we use for footwear, we use several themes that we've basically we partner with a theme company, which are actually American. So don't hold that against me, but they are really, really good. And basically we have a number of themes that we point people to, and then we'll do a small amount of coding to get that theme to how the customer wants their website to look. So I think 5 years ago, people would say Shopify's vanilla, whereas WordPress is much more creative. Marketing agencies preferred it. Whereas now there's so many themes that you can go to where you can get a really kind of personalized website and then code on top. What I would say, and if you're trying to kind of constantly cut costs, one of the things you'll look at is I can get the theme, and I can get the theme in a version which is called no code, basically. So you literally just use the theme out of the box. Don't do that, because that might cause you problems with your data set and the theme. Make sure you always buy the theme in a theme that's manipulative. So even if you can't code, you'll be able to find someone that will be able to basically do that for you at quite a low cost.
Right.
And then you get the site that you want. That would be my other
top tip.
Top tip. Yeah. So yeah, the other I think the other piece, going back to web design, because Shopify obviously has all these themes. I think it's what I would say to someone is write down if whether you've got a website and you're thinking of changing it, or whether you want a new website,
so you're starting from scratch.
So or you kind of want to kind of totally reevaluate what you've done. Write down what do you want this website to do, and actually what are the features that are really, really important. What are the features that you have to have, and what are the features that are nice to have, and what are the features that actually, do I really need that? And then I would basically then try and match in the theme marketplace. I would then try and match the theme to those requirements. But you need to start with those requirements. To get those requirements, you've got to understand who your consumer is. So, and I know a lot of like new brands starting up. Hopefully they've gone to, I know there's a few consultants in the BFA that help with this. And I know, because I know a couple of them, they're razor focused on who is your consumer going to be. That's
what's your USP? Why would someone buy from you? Why? Exactly.
And it's the same when you're building a website. Who am I aiming at? Because actually, if I'm if I'm selling 400 pound loafers, I don't need a website that's going to handle lots of volume. What I need is a website that's basically can have for a higher price point product, it's more likely the person's going to research on a desktop. For a lower price point product, where it's a little bit more I just want
disposable.
I'm probably going to buy it on a mobile. So actually, the way you would design your website in those two scenarios is different. So in the scenario of the 400 pound loafer, basically your website's going to need to take the customer on a journey, why they need to buy that loafer, what's really good about that loafer.
Why is it so expensive? Exactly. Yes.
So if that's your consumer, then you need to then think about what are the assets and the customer journey that customer's going to go through, compared with maybe we work with a children's shoe company that's buying basically a children's shoe actually needs that shoe or wants that shoe, it's probably less than £50. It's like a very different.
It's a commodity, isn't it? You've got to buy it. You need it quick. I haven't got time to, and it's just a price point, and I need it because my kid's going back to school or as grown out of shoes. So really good point, Matt, because I think a lot of people probably, and also may get a bit, we're talking about how aesthetically pleasing it is. We're looking at this, but actually really write down who's your consumer, what do they want, what are you selling. I think it's fantastic advice there, Matt. Really good advice.
Also, what people seem to forget is, particularly when they're kind of new, I think, is actually who are the competition, who's actually got your customer at the moment, and actually got, not that, and I'd never say copy someone's website because it's not the right thing to do, but go and look at the competitor's website and actually look at it from yourself, being the consumer that you want.
As a consumer,
like where am I different? Because basically in the e-com space is crowded. Google advertising is very crowded. You've got to find a way of like cutting through that noise, and part of that will be web design.
So you go back to your basics and really think about. I think that's brilliant, because I think again a lot of people might not do that. So and what's your USP? What's your product? Who's your consumer? How will they want to buy it? Brilliant. What else, Matt? What else is on your checklist?
I'll tell you a little anecdote. We've been talking to a women's wear boutique in London, and we asked them who their competition was, and they said we don't have any competition. We're the only shop in the town. It's a kind of small suburb of London. And my response was, I said to her, well, online you are competing, and she said, well, this is the thing. I don't really want to compete with other people online. I was like, okay. And part of me was like, why do you want a website? But but my kind of point really is she's also close to the fact that yes, her product was higher price point, but I could give another 10 boutiques in London alone that were doing the same thing as her, as you went further out of London towards the coast. I mean, it's a really famous one called the Hambledon. Like they quite clearly were a biggest competitor online and offline.
So know your competitors, because we all know, and a lot of business owners are very protective and really see their product as the best, which is amazing, but also don't be naive, because as a consumer there is always competition whether you know it or not, isn't it? So I suppose that's another good example there, Matt. Know your competition, because you will have competition.
And then I think if you're a bigger business, it's because what everybody does on Shopify, and sometimes I get this a little bit, well, Shopify's expensive, and Shopify is more expensive than WooCommerce, definitely. I mean, you're probably looking for a basic Shopify, I think it's £25 plus VAT per month. I think they give you a 20% discount if you pay it up front in a year. But WordPress or WooCommerce would be half that. So that's often a thing I get thrown out. But then my argument is, well, Shopify is better, and actually it's quite a small amount of money.
And we know you get what you pay for, don't you?
But also it does jump up quite quickly. And I know there's a lot of business owners that, and I've spoken to a couple of people recently where they're kind of looking for kind of warehouse management or a B2B system. And I've said, well, you can use Shopify Plus, which is great for internationalization. It's great for wholesale, and actually you can create a B2B storefront. So you could do all your orders automatically through a storefront, and it runs from one stock pool, or it can run from 2 stock pools or 5 stock pools. It's all completely flexible, but the jump is quite big. I mean, you go from like someone on an full enterprise program might be paying £1,000 a month. But my argument, and funny enough, is they're not a BFA member and they're not Footwear, so I could talk about them. But I know someone who said to me, I don't want to do that, Max, it's too expensive, and then went and put Salesforce in, which was more than that, and then created a complexity, then had to have a developer, then had a Salesforce consultant, and
so
Salesforce,
actually
By the way, I'm not anti Salesforce because it's great for bigger businesses, and there's a reason to use it. My point would be is if before you kind of go down those routes, if you're already in Shopify, look at what that can offer.
Yeah.
And you can go on Shopify's chat and you can chat with an expert. Like just you can text chat, they'll call you.
Brilliant.
They're very open to it. Or you find an expert who is an expert in Shopify Plus, and they'll guide you through it.
So you could put your idea in, and they would come back and say whether you could do that or not. I mean, that's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah, basically.
We've done a few B2B projects recently. Again, not for BFA members, but more kind of in the clothing industry, and it is very, very effective. I think the clothing industry feels like because when their reps are on the road, the reps just like to have like an iPad and they like to be able to sort of show a model wearing the clothing. I guess it's a different way of selling, because basically you can't like just turn up at someone's shop. You've got all the kind of articles, like, because actually I haven't been a shoe rep. There's always someone in the shop that'll try it on for you. When you're clothing, it doesn't work.
No,
I mean we're doing a bit of work with a brand called Hartford at the moment, a French brand, and they basically they're everything for them is automated. It's automated through Shopify, and they wouldn't have it any other way. And they're quite a traditional business that but since COVID they've had to change.
And they've seen the the strength of Shopify. So any other tips, Matt? I mean,
any other tips?
We could talk for hours.
Let me kind of so what I would say from if I was to put it into themes, so you've got customer acquisition. So I have a plan for customer acquisition. Who's my customer? How am I going to get them? What channels am I going to? And what markets am I going to? Because that then defines how you build your website. Think about your website design. Are you going to want to manage it long term, or are you going to get someone in to do it? So that also might change how you build the website, or how you get someone to build the website for you. Are you going to use a theme with low code or high code or no code? My advice is don't go down the no code, because it won't be personalized for your business. But if you're going to want to manage it yourself, you'll want it in low code. Because basically it will protect you a bit. What are your must-haves versus your nice-to-haves? Write them down, and basically talk to your consultant, your web designer, Shopify, if you're doing it yourself, about what features do I actually need. So for instance, if I'm a store, is collecting store important, because that's fundamentally changes the checkout. Basically make what I would say with web design is, if you've already got a website, sometimes making very small changes can have a big effect. So, and that's about analyzing what's going on, making those small changes, and then seeing what effect they have. So I also did say to someone the other day, we haven't built his website, we're actually managing his website, and we were with his web development team, and basically we're having a lot of dropout at checkout, and they were trying to change like 10 things, and I said, I tell you what, let's just change the postage,
and then we can just see if it's that.
Because if we change the card symbols, the Apple Pay,
you won't know what it is.
We won't know what. No. We'll never know. So that's another good bit of advice. If you do, change one thing and then analyze it. As I said to you, data is king. So look at basically how your consumers going to want to see your menus, your filtering, your search. All those things are really important, and they're data driven. So if the data's wrong in the first place, nobody will find the product that they want. And then basically make sure that in your product descriptions you're using search engine optimization best practice, which is those keywords in the descriptions. My fourth topic would be analyze your business constantly. So you don't have to do it every single week, but do it at least once a month. What's happening? What's been happening? What do I need to change? What's my customer retention rate? because the other thing that businesses do when they're analysing the business, they always analyse the sales, and basically, and I'll hear things like, oh my God, we've got like a 90% new customer rate. Well, actually, that might not be good. It is great that you've got new customers, but actually, the lifetime value of that customer is very small then. And actually, then your cost.
Why is that?
Yeah. And also your cost of acquiring that customer, you could have spent £10 on Google acquiring that customer the first time. So if you can get them to buy 2 or 3 times, you amortize that cost. So yeah,
and also it's ultimately saying that your product's right because they're loyal and they're coming back. Because if you've all got all new customers and no returning customers, then why is that?
Yeah, and also look at your returns rates.
Yeah, exactly.
But
also,
but also understand that return rate. So, it could be that, I work with one brand where the customer buys 5 or 6 pairs because obviously it's children's, and they have to
and they need to try them on,
and then half of them come back generally.
Yes.
And that's okay because the customers.
That's what they're doing.
It's like you've just said. If I work for another brand who had horrendous fit issues, and basically their returns rate was always sky high on any marketplace they were on, because it didn't fit the way the customer expected it to fit.
Exactly.
Or there's lots of. I mean, it's a whole other topic.
Yeah,
Shopify,
it is.
Shopify does link really nicely into a lot of the AI tools for size and fitting, but that's not. I'm definitely not the expert on that, I would say. And then get customer feedback. So a lot of people use things like Trustpilot as review apps.
Yes,
those are really good because they do obviously tell the customer that you've got a genuine website. We're working with some guys at the moment at one called LibScore, and how that's different is they actually, if the customer's bought, they actually go and ask the customer what was the experience on the website, and they basically, if they answer 5 questions on like how your website shopped, they get like a £10 voucher. And so, you tend to then get honest kind of answers, and actually that's someone that's bought. So actually you could argue, well, like they're always going to say it's good, but they don't actually say, well, I bought your product, but this didn't really work for me, and and you can find some really good information out. So basically get kind of real consumer feedback.
Yes.
And then my 5th and final thing is think before adding an app.
I love it. And I think your whole thing throughout this, Matt, is less is more, isn't it? Just go back to basics. Don't get overwhelmed. Think about who your customer is, what you're doing. Look at the functionality. All the pretty bits can be changed, but actually look at what you're doing. Okay.
Yeah.
So really
because
interesting.
If you think we all shop online now without even thinking about it. The best customer journeys are the simple ones.
Yeah,
if I have to click a shopping basket 6 times, or I have to find it, drives me crazy. Whereas if I just press checkout, there's Apple Pay, job done.
So we have had, Matt, any more top tips?
No, I think that's it, really.
Fantastic. Well,
not any
more
that I'm prepared to share.
Yeah, you have to go through to Matt, but thanks ever so much, Matt. So Matt is Modular Commerce. You can find all his details on our website, or reach out to Matt or me, and I can put you in touch. But he's helped a lot of BFA members, super knowledgeable, and not just within the remit that we've spoke about today, in other areas. So thank you so much, Matt, and hopefully we'll come back later, because we have got another topic that we're going to talk about later on. So watch this space. So thanks very much, Matt.
Brilliant. Thanks, Polly.